As you know, one of the ways the military prepares for battle is through war games. Well, imagine getting ready for a crisis over oil, using events that could be pulled from today's headlines, made even worse by unforeseen emergencies. What you'd get is a simulation called Oil Shockwave, developed by Securing America's Future Energy, an organization that says America's dependence on imported oil is dangerous. The dramatic exercise brought together former top government and military officials, primarily veterans of the George W. Bush administration. They were given roles in a mock National Security Committee and were charged with leading the country out of energy-related chaos.
Eyewitnesses reported seeing helicopters heading into the facility just before a series of explosions rocked the compound.
The crisis scenario begins with an al-Qaeda attack on the world's largest oil processing plant in Saudi Arabia. Officials gather to prepare a national response. Among them, Stephen Hadley, here portraying the National Security Advisor, a position he held in the Bush administration. Ambassador John Negroponte, former Director of National Intelligence, playing the part of Secretary of State, and John Hofmeister, former president of Shell Oil, in the role of Energy Secretary.
This attack really takes things up to a higher level of fear and uncertainty.
Over the next 2 hours or so, they deal with increasingly urgent events. The damaged plant reduces Saudi Arabia's petroleum production. Oil prices soar to $173 a barrel. But it doesn't stop there.
I've got something in from my station chief in Doha now, emergency cable. There's renewed turbulence in Bahrain.
The situation escalates when weapons are fired as Bahraini naval vessels, with U.S. support, intercept Iranian boats suspected of arming the Bahrain insurgents.
Our forces are in good shape. The concern would be the Straits of Hormuz.
OPEC meets to discuss the Mideast turmoil's effect on oil production. But feuding results in Iran teaming with Venezuela to jointly cut production by 15%. The news sends oil surging close to $200 a barrel.
We're looking at $6 a gallon gasoline when people go to their pump tomorrow.
The entire chain of events may read like a Tom Clancy book. Based on your real-life experience, how real was this simulation? I mean, could this really happen?
I would rate the scenario as pretty darn realistic.
Since the U.S. imports about 50% of its oil at an annual cost of about $300 billion a year, the participants made clear such cascading crises would likely result in military action in the Middle East.
The next step would be potentially an embargo or a blockade. Those are acts of war.
And back home, chaos.
The U.S. economy, which everyone agrees is already on the verge of falling into a deep recession, is in fact going into a deep recession. No one really knows how bad the situation can get.
The officials' task to come up with solutions. The bottom line, getting off the dependence on imported oil, both in the simulation.
We've got to get oil out of the ground. There's lots of oil. It's just not getting to the market.
And in reality.
We should be ringing the alarm bells and the sirens to drive the political leadership to make some decisions to get on with the future, because we are more vulnerable than most people know.
But how to change that? Well, you said during the simulation that the companies should open up U.S. oil production, saying we have the largest reserves in the world. Is that practical?
It's absolutely practical. This country used to produce 10 million barrels a day. We're down below 7. And it's only because of public policy that prohibits the domestic production of natural resources that we have gone into decline.
More broadly, the role players declared a need for a comprehensive, bold, courageous energy policy.
This notion that you can either be green or you can be black oil is crazy. And, you know, we want to go to alternative energies, but everybody knows that they're going to take time to develop. In the interim, we've got to be able to grow this economy. So it is always, in this case, all of the above.
In the end, the simulation's conclusions ring alarm bells. Are we cooked if this crisis happens tomorrow?
We're pretty cooked. You know, the problem with crises is that in the crises, as I said, your options are most constrained. You got options before the crisis, you got options after the crisis. So we're in this sort of catch-22. You need a crisis to rivet people's attention, but in the crisis, you have the fewest options.
It wasn't all doom and gloom, though. Members of the mock cabinet said a lot of work needs to be done to prepare the U.S. for an extreme oil crisis, but some of that work has begun. And they said they have faith that America can develop new energy sources and innovations to go along with oil.